In this video, we're going to take a look at chess pins. I'm going to show you a few games of how different players handle pins in chess at different rating levels, and I'm going to show you how you should handle them moving forward. Anyway, let's get into it. Let's go. All right, so the first game I played here is against the 1100 player. Now, he's played the French defense, and he played it pretty solidly, so far, so good. But we're not playing the French. The video is not about the French defense. It's about pins. So let's get moving. Okay, so far, my opponent is outplaying me. He is up a pawn here. So I just put my bishop on d3, improve my bishop, and now the knight comes to f6. And since you know the title of the video, I guess you can assume what comes now. We have a pin. So I pinned the knight. Now, this is very easily parried just by playing bishop e7. And my plan was to take, and then just simply castle and play from there. However, my opponent allowed the pin over here and played bishop c5. First of all, bishop c5 hangs the bishop, so that's not good. However, since I'm making videos about chess pins, I didn't take the bishop. I just castled. I was nice. I gave my opponent another chance to play bishop e7. However, he wouldn't do it, and he castled. So now, I'm not even sure if I would play knight takes c5 now, for real. If it was a real game, I might still do what I did in this game. Now, how do we take advantage of this pin? This is a very common pin that happens at the beginner levels, and black doesn't have a bishop here to have extra adequate protection of the knight. So how do we take here? A lot of players might play this, and obviously you can't take back with the queen or else you lose your queen. But after that, the follow-up is very unclear. Well, in this position, of course, we have the bishop. But in regards to checkmating the king, it's unclear. But here, for the most part, we play knight f6, and that's what I played. Now, he can't take with the queen or he'll lose his queen. So he took over here. And now I just take away the square around his king. And my threat is check and then checkmate. However, a lot of players get tunnel visioned and see that you're hitting their rook, and they move their rook, which is what he did. So that was the pseudo threat, but the real threat was queen g4, which is where I hit him with, and I played queen g7 checkmate. Now, to go back on it, my opponent should have obviously just played here instead of castling, bishop e7. Not only was his bishop hanging, but this actually breaks the pin, and he's completely fine. All right, on to the next game. We have a 1900 player. So how's a 1900 player going to handle one of my pins? Okay, so we have knight c3 and bishop b4, pinning the knight to the king. Now, what am I essentially doing here? I'm attacking e4 here. So basically, because this knight's defending e4 and I'm pinning it, I'm attacking e4. Now, a lot of players will play what he played, and this is not good here. So I would suggest playing something like queen d3, getting out of the pin and also protecting here. If I take, he can take with the pawn now, and he's still protecting. A lot of times you can just simply take over here, and then after you take, just play bishop d3. That's probably the best move. And now you're protecting this and developing at the same time, and you can castle and you're not weakening your position. So that's how you should handle this pin in this position. However, my opponent played f3, which is common, and it's a weakening move. So it weakens the king side, as you can see, opens up diagonals to the king, and if the king castles here, this diagonal is very weak. And also I can rip open the king, the e file right here, which is what I did with d5. And after it takes, my opponent blundered a pawn here. And, well, he didn't blunder. Well, I should give him more credit than that. It's not, it looks like, why would a 1900 just blunder a pawn? But he actually had an idea here. He wanted to get my knight out of the way to play this check because it looks like you're winning the bishop. Now, however, I can block defending the bishop. He saw that, but he saw after this move, and I take back, he wins the bishop. However, after he takes, I have this in-between move, check, and after he takes back, I can take, and now this check does not win the rook because I simply block, and I'm also defending the rook. So after his queen moved, I'll show you again a little further. I'll show you the rest of this game because the game ends in a pin, actually. So I just bring my rook to c8. He throws in a check. I get out of the way. He throws in another check. I get out of the way. He attacks my rook. And now I'm threatening to pin the queen to the king. So my opponent comes here, attacks my queen. But what did I do here to finish the game? And to finish it off with the pin, I just simply moved out of the way. Queen b6. I'm still defending this back rank check. So there's no in-between moves. And I'm attacking the bishop. And I'm threatening this. So he took, but it still doesn't stop me from playing this right away, which is what I did. And after it takes, not only do I win the queen, I'm going to get either bishop I want. So again, in this position, this comes out of the Sicilian. It's very common, actually, and we don't want to play f3. What you want to do is trade the knights and then play bishop d3 and then castle. And that's the most solid way to play that pin that you'll see in the Sicilian. Usually it's played in the knight Orff or similar Sicilian variations like that. Okay, in this game, I'm playing another 1100 from Australia. And what happens here? In this game, this is also a very common idea. So I'm pinning the knight to the queen. And now I just simply attack the queen and the knight. Now, my opponent blundered really hard here. And this is already a mistake. He should not have let this happen. So now I'm attacking the queen and this knight twice, which is going to break open the pawns on the king side. And it's very hard to play this. So my opponent actually blundered his queen here and lost the game. But it's already really a tough situation because if he comes back here, I would simply just take, and after he takes back, I could take. If he takes with the king, he loses his rook. And if he takes with the knight, I would still, if he takes with the knight, I would still take an f6, hitting the rook and then winning this pawn, and I'm completely winning. Now, what should my opponent have done here? This is pretty common sense here. You just don't let the knight come there. You never let your opponent pile up on the pin. If there's a pin, you never let him pile up on it. It's as simple as that. Do not let this bishop hang out there for a while. So you can either, if you don't want this bishop to hang out here for a while, you can chase it away and then play knight c6. Or you could simply take away the squares that would pile up on this pin. Now, the only piece that can pile up on this knight is this knight on d5. So c6 would handle that. So that's how I would handle that pin from that position. In this game, I just kind of gave it away to show a glimpse of it. But this is not so much a pin, but a discovery. But in my opinions, pins and discoveries are like cousins in chess because one person's pin, if you look at it the other way, is someone's discovery. And I'm going to show you that's a hint and a segue into the next game I'm going to show you. So stick around because the next game is really cool. I have a really cool tactic. Okay, so after this, my opponent played queen g6. And this is another lesson of don't take your queen out too early more than anything. So here I just took, and now this discovers an attack on f7. And I win a pawn. I'm attacking the queen. He cannot take back because I win the queen. So my opponent already got himself into a precarious position, actually a losing position, and I went on to win this game pretty quickly. All right, the final game I'm going to show you is against the 1000, and I'm going to show you my opponent pins me, and I'm going to show you how I handle a pin at the 2200 level. So we have the Italian game. This is very common, and my opponent throws in this pin. You can argue it's slightly premature, but it's okay. Normally, I would play bishop e3 here, but I just played a4. I wanted to see what he wanted to do. I was probing him to play this, which he did. Now, what do we see here? My opponent's pinning my queen here, pinning my knight to the queen, and piling up on it. The only problem is I haven't castled kingside yet. So I could even just play bishop e3. I could simply take, move out here. So in other words, if we had the game continuation like this, we could just have simply this, and then, well, he would lose the pawn there. He has to defend the pawn. And then after this, I would just go, I would just go queenside, not kingside, and I'm perfectly fine here. Not only am I fine, but if my opponent goes kingside, I have an open G file to the king. However, I wanted to see what my opponent would do if I played knight takes e5. Now, this some of you might be familiar with this. This is Legao's mate. However, it's not really Legao's mate. It shouldn't work in this position for one reason. I'm not castled. If I'm castled, it should definitely work. The reason why it doesn't work, well, first of all, I'll show you what happened. He took my queen. So again, is it a pin on my knight or a discovery on his bishop? You see what I did there? So it's two sides of the looking glass. It's how you see things. Are you pessimistic or are you not? So, in other words, he took the queen here, and now I have check and checkmate. That's Legao's mate. So that's how this game ended. Ended pretty quickly. However, that's a mistake on my part, taking on e5, and I just wanted to see what he would do. He should have, in fact, just taken the knight. And now usually, like I said, in this Legao's mate pattern, you're usually castled. And after they take, you win a pawn. So they took my knight, I take the bishop, I win the pawn. But here, since my king's not castled, after this variation, he wins back his pawn with check and then gets the rook. So that's how you should play it. Again, Legao's mate doesn't work unless you're castled. So if you're not castled and your opponent hits you at knight e5, you can just simply take the knight, and after they take the bishop, you win the rook. Let me just show you the difference if I was castled. So if I was castled, and we'll just throw away a move here, now I can play it, and if they take, I can just take here, and if they take, it's not nearly as good because I actually have threats here of checkmate, and I'm hitting the pawn, and this never came with check, which allowed me to play queen h5. Anyway, there you have it. Those are just a few games of how different players at different rating levels handle common chess pins that occur in the games. If some of those were too rudimentary for some of you guys, I have more intermediate and advanced concepts coming out later. I have many more videos coming out, which if you like these videos, by the way, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. It really does help the channel and allows me to make more videos for you guys to help everyone learn the great game of chess. Anyway, get out there, go play some chess.